That's so good. He's taking a video.
not good. But he's
No, you can wear yoga.
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gokula Karuni Mandala Mahite Ram Hare He's just finishing, right?
Finishing what?
Oh, Maharaj.
Say Jai Dhwani.
Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandhar Vikagir Dhani Radha Vinod Vihari Radha Govinda Devaki Dal Shrom Vishnupada Parahan Samarasa Terasata Shri Srila Avai Chananavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj
Jai.
Nitya Lila Vishnom Vishnupada Paramahan Samarasa Terasata Shri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Gurudev Ki Jai Anitya Lila Vishnom Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vigan Bharati Maharaj Ki Jai Tirabhav Mahamhotsava Srila Bharati Maharaj Ki Jai Dali Vishnom Vishnupad Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Gurudev Maharaj Ki Jai Anitali Vishnom Vishnupad Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Maharaj Ki Dali Vishnom Vishnupad Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Prabhyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj Ki Dali Vishnom Vishnupad Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shri Gurudev Goswami Maharaj Ki Anitali Vishnom Vishnupad Paramahansa Gauracharya Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Jagadguru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Ki Mara Bhagavat Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Shakta Goswami Satchidananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Shri Gaudiya Vedanta Acharya Srila Bhakti Bhushan Prabhu Ki Shri Rasika Shri Vishwanath Thakur Thakur Ki Shri Narottam Srinivasana Bhuttai Ki Shri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Rupa Shri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shri Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Sri Damodar Rai Ramananda Shri Gaura Parashad Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Shri Maha Mahotsava Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Gauranga Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Navadvip Maya Pradhan Ki Ganga Devi Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Devi Ki Shrimati Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Ishwar Mahadev Ki Braj Dham Ki Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Chaitra Danta Gopinath Ki Narasingha Bhagavan Ki Bhakta Pravara Prahlad Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Samagata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
So a very auspicious day and wonderful auspicious kirtan. all have done very beautiful kirtan. I was thinking as I was hearing it that this is Mahaprabhu's benediction, congregational chanting, you know. So, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All victory to the glorious chanting of Shri Krishna's transcendental holy names. And that means Shuddhanam, actually. When we say Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, it means Shuddhanam. That is the all-glorious victory of the holy names. But also it means congregational chanting. This is Srila Gurudev Swami has explained this. When many come together to chant the holy names, this is also called Samkirtan. Samgraha, gathering together so many. So today is the disappearance day of the Nam Acharya, the personality who was given the title by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself as the Acharya of chanting the holy names of Krishna. So, very exalted position for a very exalted personality. We also know that this personality has his special identity, right? And what is that?
Brahmaji.
Yes, he's Brahma Haridas. Brahma, Lord Brahma, who is the biggest VIP in the universe. No one has a more, no jiva has a more, how do you say it, exclusive, elevated position as Lord Brahma, right? All amongst the demigods and all. Of course, Lord Krishna is beyond that. But amongst the demigods, Lord Brahma is the topmost. But yet, he took birth in Chaitanya Lila, born in very low birth as a Muslim. Does it mean that he was low? That he was born in a low family? No. This is one of the unique features of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Harinam Sankirtan movement, that he wanted to demonstrate to the whole world that in this age of Kali there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way, right? Hare Nam, eva kevalam, kalo nastyeva, 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 gatiranyata. Only by chanting Hare Nam in this age of Kali. So to demonstrate this, Mahaprabhu on many different levels, he arranged to bring his devotees within this world from the spiritual world. And even they took birth in faraway places, impious places, just to purify them. And Namacharya Haridas Thakur, his life is so glorious. There's so much nectar about Haridas Thakur. We could go on for a few days, maybe we will. And Chaitanya Bhagavat, the glories of Haridas Thakur, his pastimes, his relationship with Mahaprabhu, and especially his passing. This is the big one. How Namacharya Haridas Thakur left this world. This is the day. And by an amazing arrangement of the Supreme Lord, Nityalila Pravishta Vishnupad Paramahans Astratara Satashri Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, probably he chose this day. You know, I heard from various devotees and saw at the time of his passing how everyone was gathered there. There's a Katha by him, about him, put on what I get in my email, about how he was preparing for that. He made various preparations for that. I think that would be nice to read. How many devotees do we have who will speak? Yeah. Who else? Anyone can speak if they want, but you have to let us know. Govinda can speak. Yes. Okay, so I'm saying Mangala Charana to begin this Harikatha session. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayati Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaudatishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalau Kalamashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta-rupa swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta-shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta. Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Shri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Astotara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of all of my Siksha Guru Varga, very prominent in my group of Siksha Gurus is the personality who we are honoring today, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Statara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Statara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Trivikram Goswami Maharaj. Srila Bhakti Balbatirtha Goswami Maharaj. Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj. Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Dayata Madhava Goswami Maharaj, and all other great personalities that I have been fortunate to receive their merciful association. And on today, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, the great personality who, for this whole Kali Yuga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given him the title of Nam Acharya, who revealed within this world and demonstrated himself personally the glories of chanting pure Krishna Nam unceasingly, continuously, 24 hours. And there's also a very wonderful book written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in which Namacharya Haridas Thakur is questioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu wants to hear from him, right? And Namacharya Haridas Thakur was always very humble, very self-deprecating, but he understood that Mahaprabhu has this desire, so actually it will be him speaking through me, so then I will speak. And Mahaprabhu wanted to know how all the living entities will be delivered. That was his question. He wanted to hear from Haridas Thakur how this is going to be possible. And then Haridas Thakur spoke, Harinam Chintamani, the book written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he also went over very, very carefully all the different 10 offenses against the holy names. What is Namabhas? What is Shubhanam? Everything in that book. Yes. I think it was that book that Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned is like the sequel to the Jaiva Dharma. The sequel to the Jaiva Dharma. So, on this day, we're honoring his divine lotus feet because this is the day that he departed from this world. And how did he depart? In the most glorious, inconceivably glorious way. We will be reading that Leela. How Namacharya Haridas Thakur was leaning against a tree, kind of half lying down and chanting. Mahaprabhu came, as he did every day, and gave his darshan to Haridas Thakur. And then on that day he asked to Haridas Thakur, oh, Haridas, you are not well? And then Haridas said, my body is okay, but I am not spiritually well, because I could not complete my 3 lakhs of Harinam. And Mahaprabhu told him, oh, but you are perfected, Lord. You have done your whole life. This is not necessary. But Haridas Thakur could not be dissuaded that this was his dharma, he must complete it. But then Haridas Thakur told Mahaprabhu, my dear Lord, I know that very soon you are going to wind up your pastimes in this world. And I want you to know that I will not be able to tolerate your absence. It will not be possible for me to live after you have left this world. So So therefore I desire to leave before you. And Mahaprabhu simply smiled. And the next day, Gauranga Mahaprabhu came there with all of his elevated Vaishnavas. And that story of how Kirtan was begun by these elevated, pure, eternal associates of the Lord in front of Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur requested Mahaprabhu to place his lotus feet on his chest, and then his lotus foot, and then he embraced his lotus feet and fixed his eyes like bumblebees on the face of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and completely absorbed and relishing the nectar. This kirtan was going on and became so exalted. And then at that moment, by his own will, by his own desire, just as Bhishma Dev on the field of Kurukshetra, in the presence of Lord Krishna, left his body by his own will, Namacharya Haridas Thakur left his body. And when he did that, all the Vaishnavas doing kirtan completely went wild with kirtan. And Mahaprabhu picked up Haridas Thakur's body and he danced in the kirtan with his body. And then arrangement was made to bring him to the ocean. Then they already had an arrangement of a palanquin to carry Namacharya Haridas Thakur's body. And with kirtan they went to the ocean front there in Jagannath Puri. We're very fortunate. We can go to the exact place where Mahaprabhu, with his own hands, buried Namacharya Haridas Thakur, performed his samadhi in the sands, bathed his holy body with the ocean waters, in the presence of all the Vaishnavas and thousands of people coming there to witness this event. So we can go to that very place. It has been preserved. His samadhi, Haridas Thakur. Whenever I go there in Puri, I can't even believe. It's too much for me to even fathom that I'm sitting here where Mahaprabhu put him into samadhi. Where this great personality will be here for hundreds and thousands of years. So fortunate. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote on the samadhi. There were some, at that time, in the turn of the century, he placed a plaque there with a poem. You know that poem? Very short little sonnet. He reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die. When thou art living still and sound, the Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread the holy name around. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right directly near to there, he bought that property. Now ISKCON has it, luckily, and they've made a beautiful temple there, and they have a deity of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, big deity there on the Vyasa-san. That was his place called Bhakti Kuti. And right across the road from there, where the Gaudiya Math is now, Nilachala, no, not Nilachala, what's it called? Forget. There's two Gaudiya Maths. One is by Tota Gopinath, and the other is this one. And they have the same name, but I'm forgetting the name.
Sri Chaitanya Math?
No.
Isn't it Gopinath?
No. Huh?
The Gopinath?
No. Anyway, I can't remember. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, years ago, before they started building all these guest houses on that property, but there was a smaller house, and that was the exact house that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to stay in when he was in Puri in the 1890s. And it had windows on all sides for getting the breeze and everything. But then later, I'm pretty sure they tore that house down because they were building that property. So many different guest houses like that. But that place is very sacred, the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur. And everyone in Puri knows what is this Samadhi. And any rickshawwala, you just say Haridas Samadhi. There you go. Yeah. So that pastime of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he also wanted that a huge gigantic feast would be offered. So Mahaprabhu personally went to all the stalls, because they used to have so many stalls of Jagannath Mahaprasad persons who were vending this. And with his Uttariya, he went to start begging them. Srup Damodar Goswami was with him, and he told them, "No, my lord, we will arrange everything." So then he told every one of the shopkeepers to give X amount, like this. And then they had this gigantic feast. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people were fed on that day. So I remember on the disappearance day of our beloved Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan in November 14th, 1977, I was there. And they read this pastime of Haridas Thakur and his departure from this world. So I'm going to read that pastime this evening in the evening class. If anyone wants to hear it, they can come. And so at the end of that pastime, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who vividly described it, he says, anyone who has seen, anyone who has taken part, anyone who has taken some Mahaprasad in this, I forget what the benediction is, but you'll get Krishna praying. So today is that day, and on this day, when was it? 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
Was it 2017?
Was it 2017 when Srila Bharati Maharaj
Yeah, 4 years.
went into Samadhi? 17. Okay, 18, yeah, 4 years ago. And such a glorious personality. I was very fortunate. I've told this before, but I'm saying it again. I was so fortunate to have his association. I probably could have had lots and lots more if I had focused in that way. But from the time when our Gurudev departed in 2010, at the very end of 2010, then various persons like Shamarani Devi and others, they began to go like bumblebees to Srila Bharati Maharaj. And I had seen Srila Bharati Maharaj many years prior when Gurudev was with us. I think it was probably around the early 2000s. And during Kartik he came and sat in Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math on the small dais with a few other sannyasis. Gurudev had him sit right next to him. I didn't know who he was, but I could obviously see that Gurudev had great honor for him, and just by looking at him I could understand his personality. He's very elevated. And I noticed how he was sitting there and how he was looking at everyone, including myself. The whole temple room was full. And, he would kind of like nod his head like this, with a very grave look on his face. Looking at him like this. And eventually Gurudev had him speak. He spoke in Hindi, and I could follow some of it, but I noticed how erudite he was, how eloquent and erudite. And so many verses, so many shlokas he quoted. So, after that first time of meeting him, what was the second time? Yeah. The second time, I think, was after Gurudev's Samadhi, the next Gaur Purnima, which was like two or 2.5 months after, in 2011. And there was, at Gurudev's Samadhi, there was only a small hut, temporary hut at that time. And I remember I was in the guest house that most of the Westerners stay in, when you come in through the front gate, just to the right there. And I started hearing someone calling out very loudly, like on the different floors. Everyone, Srila Bharati Maharaj has come, Srila Bharati Maharaj has come. He's by Gurudev Samadhi, everyone come, come. So I went running there. And by the time I got there, there was already a big, huge circle around him. They had brought just a plastic chair for Bharati Maharaj to sit in, facing Gurudev Samadhi. And all of our senior sannyasi Vaishnavas, like, Pujapad Tirtha Maharaj and Pujapad Madhav Maharaj, Van Maharaj, Sridhar Maharaj, all of them. And all of the senior brahmachari, they were all circling around him very, very closely. And he was speaking. And every one of them was just weeping and weeping. And the impression that I got at that moment is that here's the father and here's the children. That was very clear to me at that moment. Here's the personality who is in that position, and here's the children. After that, after he spoke, then they took him upstairs in the building behind the Samadhi, where Gurudev's quarters were, and as many persons as could fit came upstairs and looked into the quarters, and Srila Bharati Maharaj was also speaking. Not too long, briefly, maybe 10 minutes or something like that. And because Srila Bharati Maharaj also, I think at that time he was also giving some suggestions and instructions regarding the Samadhi, how the Samadhi should be done like that. Because Srila Bharati Maharaj, that's one of his characteristics in the seva that he performed all through the decades for, Gaudiya Math, his construction of temple. He knew everything about it. Very, very expert. I know that he designed his own Samadhi, where it is right now, because that property of that Samadhi, at that time, there was something that happened with that property. It's right across from Gopinath Gaudiya Math. Could you someone ask them not to play the piano there? It's a distraction. So that property on the main road, coming from the Ghat, Mayapur Ghat, and then walking up, and there's Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj's Samadhi, and then there's his temple, Gopinath Gaudiya Math. And then a little bit distance from there, across the road on the other side, is the property where actually Bodayan Maharaj had saved that property, because the property was purchased by an ISKCON devotee. Someone was going to sell it. And actually there was a Samadhi of one of Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciples on that property, like a small Samadhi and a very small little temple was there. So it's where that disciple of Prabhupada stayed and did his bhajan in his final days. So that he was placed into Samadhi there. And some ISKCON devotee had purchased the property because they, on the main road there, they were building guest houses and all of that. You could make a lot of money by investing in this property. So when Srila Bodayan Maharaj heard, he went and approached that very devotee, and he told him, he said, that this property is the place of our Guru Varga. It has the Samadhi of our Guru Varga. So I'm requesting that you sell the property back to me, because we cannot allow that it will be torn down, his samadhi is there, and we'll build some guest house. So that devotee agreed, but he sold it back twice the price of what he bought it for. At any rate, Srila Bodhayan Maharaj was able to secure that property, and then he gave a whole big area for a very nice quarters. It's just one structure of a building. It's probably not bigger than this temple room, I would say, the square footage inside of it. And on one side there's a kitchen was built and a small room for his servants. And then in the main room he had his facilities, his bed and bathroom and so forth. And it was there that Srila Bharati Maharaj gave Harikatha in that final year in Gaur Purnima of 2017. And I noted that the entire courtyard was completely full of devotees who I had never seen them, many of them from ISKCON. It was a small courtyard. It was at least about like 200 or more devotees squeezed into there. And every night they placed his chair. He has kind of like an office type chair on wheels, and they would place him right in the doorway, right? And then they placed the microphone there, and that's where he gave Katha each evening. And so that was the final time that I heard and saw him. And prior to that, they had also acquired a property in Jagannath Puri, which was just like 5 or 7 minute walk from Gurudev's temple there on the ocean front. So during the winter period when we were there, in his final year, now he was giving in his own property up on the 2nd or 3rd floor. And he also had quarters there. But years prior to that, he was giving Harikatha in his Guru Maharaj's temple of the birthplace of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on the Grand Road, in the temple of that institution. Right? There were some differences that arose between the other disciples, a lot of them disciples of Srila Bhakti Ballabhatirtha Maharaj, because he was the Acharya, the successor Acharya of Bhakti Dvaita Madhav Maharaj. And and then there were some godbrothers as well of his. But some differences came. So just like Gurudev, by the will of Krishna, Gurudev also had to separate, at least externally, in terms of institution, from the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti institution. And so Srila Bharati Maharaj also, at the very end of his life. But he was feeling so much impelled to give mercy to the jivas. I saw the letter that he wrote. Madhava Priya showed it to me. The letter that he wrote to their GBC, administrative group, expressing, because at that time, Srila Bhakti Ballabhatirtha Maharaj, that was like a couple of years prior. And Bhakti Ballabhatirtha Maharaj, he was in internal state. He was not external for a few years already. And Srila Bharati Maharaj was not in agreement with them, because what they were doing was, without his consent and permission, new devotees who were coming there were performing a kind of ritvik initiation in the presence of Srila Bhakti Ballabhatirtha Maharaj, telling the devotees that they're now becoming his disciple. But that, Srila Bharati Maharaj took great difference to that. And he also expressed that I want, now, at this very end of my life, I feel so much need to give mercy. And many persons are coming to me. And I feel internally impelled that I must give them mercy in the form of accepting them as disciples and so forth. And he was asking their committee to give their sanction, even though ultimately he doesn't need that. But because he's cooperating in their institution, he wanted that. And just after that, then everyone went to Navadvip, and they responded by saying, when we come to Navadvip, we will discuss it. But then they never discussed it. And Srila Bharati Maharaj left Navadvip before Gaur Purnima. And he went to Faridabad, and he stayed there. There were quite a few devotees that went with him. And he was in a very special mood at that time. Very, very special mood. Very deep mood. And sometimes he was laughing, and sometimes he was crying. And it was just like at the very end of his life. His whole life, he had served in the institution. Right? But now, by circumstances, he's separate from that. So Srila Bharati Maharaj, what I witnessed, and like the Kartik that came just after that, I think that was 2016 maybe. The Kartik, when he was staying at Gopinath Bhavan. One Kartik before that, he was staying at, no, maybe he stayed at both. He stayed at Srila Puri Maharaj's mutt. Bodhayan Maharaj in charge there. Gopinath Gauri mutt, right near to Gopishwar Mahadev. And he was giving classes every night. And he was every night. The whole place was just completely packed. And then he came to Gopinath Bhavan. And Gopinath Bhavan facilitated, they actually built a room specifically for him in the back there, which he stayed in, I think, twice. That year and then the next year. But the final year that he stayed there, he stayed there about 2 weeks, I think. And then every night he was giving Katha. And it's a big temple room there, whole thing was completely packed with devotees. And again, so many faces I never saw before, many, many ISKCON devotees. And I remember expressing to some devotee that having Srila Bharati Maharaj in this world, after our Guru Maharaj has left, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, having him in this world was so reassuring and so giving relief and joy to the heart, Because when in that last session there, in Gopinath Bhavan, when he would come and he would sit in the assembly, it was very clear, here's the Acharya. Here's the Acharya. He's the world Acharya. He hasn't gone outside of India, but he's the world Acharya, And, his Katha that he gave in those final couple of years, I spoke with Madhava Priya Prabhu, who very surrendered. He came to the lotus feet of Srila Bharati Maharaj and offered his seva to him some years before, after Gurudev departed, and he was with him many years. He was his secretary, actually. And Madhava Priya Prabhu was so expert in translation, And at a slightly earlier period, they were using other devotees as translators, and some of them were extremely inadequate. So I approached him. And that was around the time when Srila Bharati Maharaj was writing that letter to his godbrothers. Madhava Priya also told me all about the letter and his mood in writing it. And I was mentioning to Madhava Priya that, Srila Bharati Maharaj is now coming onto the world stage. He's on the world stage now. And devotees are coming from around the world, all of his recordings and everything. So I feel that you have to do the translating. There's just no other way. And he expressed to me at that time that it's very difficult to translate him live, because Srila Bharati Maharaj is in his old age, sometimes he wouldn't complete certain sentences and all of that. But there was no one better than Madhava Priya who could complete the Hari Katha. So what he started to do was take notes, and after Srila Bharati Maharaj would speak, then he would give a complete, perfect translation and add, which is what they do also, even with his Katha, you know. And it made it very, very complete and very satisfying to hear all the points that Srila Bharati Maharaj was making. But he was so focused, right to the very end, Srila Bharati Maharaj was. You know, and so he definitely benedicted a lot of devotees, and we have a couple of them right here in New Braj, like Gadadhar Prabhu, and how he received so much mercy. Yeah. And is there anyone else who has an initiation connection, who's here? Yuvati left.
Right, I
For
know.
Ellen.
Leelavati.
She's not here. So I think we only have one initiated disciple then, right? Okay. So we'll start with Gadadhar Prabhu. We request Gadadhar Prabhu to come and to offer your Pushpanjali to the lotus feet of your Guru Maharaj Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj.
Shalakaya Chakshurum Dhamdena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Kripayavitaha Yamarda Lakshati Vaishnavanam Krupavalam Madhava Krishna Kami Shri Bhakti-dam Artim Vakshamaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnaveyo Namo. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my Gurudev Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. I also offer my unlimited obeisances to my Sikshi Gurus, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, and Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. I offer my humble obeisances to my Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Dayita Goswami Maharaj, who is so dear to my Gurudev. I offer my humble obeisances unto our Rupanuga Guru Varga, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto our Sannyasi Khan, headed by Srila Bhakti Vedanta Padmanabha Maharaj, and our senior Vaishnavas, headed by Srila Rishabhadev Prabhuji, Riyala Prabhuji, Hamsakati Prabhu. And I offer my humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Please forgive me for taking a seat here. I'll keep short, but my Gurudev's glories, as many of you know, especially for those of you that have read my beloved masters, or the Srila Chaitanya Bani. His books are compiled mainly of his experiences in serving the Vaishnavas. And as you read through these different books, even though he's mainly speaking about other Vaishnavas, through that you can see his glories and how much dedication he had towards serving Hari Guru and Vaishnav. How much he would give up, how much determination he had, even though seemingly impossible, even though maybe not even directly mentioned, he knew the hearts of these Vaishnavas. He was a perfect Shishya, and a perfect Guru, and he imbibed that by his actions. And we see how he served all these Vaishnavas to the topmost. And from that, we can see by the examples, not only of my Gurudev, but all our Guru, Guru Varga, how they all served, and how by serving, we get so much mercy. And not to bring myself in, but I hope to also imbibe that mood, that despite all odds, despite my own material inebrities, despite all the things that I want, that I lay that all aside for the service of these devotees, these Vaishnavas. So my Guru Maharaj, like Padmanabha Maharaj was saying, in his later years he came onto the world stage and took on the duty of Acharya. Because we know that all these Vaishnavas, they're constantly in Nitya Leela, they don't need to necessarily meddle in this material world because they're constantly in the Nitya Leela Dham, taking association of the Manjaris, following their Anugatya, and constantly serving. So why do they have to come down? Is because they are embodiment of Karuna Shakti, which is the most merciful potency of Sri Krishna's Shakti. And I just bow my head to this and see the amazing, I'm just in on reverence, but not on reverence, but awe about how these Vaishnavas, despite not needing to come, have come because they hear, like Gurudev heard hearts crying in New Braj. My Gurudev also heard the devotees' hearts crying, because when one Acharya leaves, we always hear that there's always a Mahabhagavat on this planet, because without that, it would go into complete turmoil. And although despite seemingly things are in turmoil in this Kali Yuga, when we know from our Acharyas and our Vaishnavas that there always is a Mahabhagavat, it gives you a sense of relief. Like Maharaj was also, for me at least speaking, to see the physical Acharya is very reassuring. So, I always like to reference Nityananda Prabhu. He said how, Srila Gurudev was his Srila Prabhupada. So, my Gurudev also. So, I feel very proud to call Srila Bhakti Bharati Maharaj Guru. I hope that I can one day fulfill his mission and imbibe his mood and become a true Shishya. Because if I do that, then I will be serving all the Vaishnavas like he did so beautifully. So I pray on this day that he showers his blessings on all of us. He showers us on me, despite me being so fallen. So, and maybe one day I'll be able to, in my own sadhana, actually truly cry, because Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj, and all our Vaishnavas, especially Srila Gurudev, though, I would always hear so many stories. Like Dainini was just telling one in New York, how Shamapriya was in class, and Gurudev was giving Hari Katha, and she began weeping, and you know, despite her trying to hide behind somebody, you know, Gurudev goes like this. He says, "Ah, yes, you should cry." So this mood of just crying and weeping, genuinely crying and weeping, not what I'm doing, and is what I hope to imbibe and hope to actually do in my own sadhana. Like Gurudev says, we have this camper and all these different things that I've experienced by meeting my Gurudev, all these different experiences I've had with high-class Vaishnavas, hearing Hari Katha. I hope to lock that up in my heart and one day try to cry sincerely. Oh Gurudev, why am I still here? Why am I still suffering? Why am I not serving you? So I pray at His lotus feet that He blesses all of us, and He showers His mercy upon us. And something, I guess, to finish up one more time, before I met Srila Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, I only had heard, I remember it was Yamuna, Pankaj's wife, had been initiated by him, and that was actually the first time I heard. And I was slightly hearing it from different angles, and I was starting to become more interested. And I remember Kishore Mohan and Sudevi were here for a Kartik, and I was coming and I was attending Mangalarti every day, and we were having a very nice program with Jagavinda and some of the other Vaishnavas. And I remember asking him, I was like, you know, how do I get, you know, I wasn't necessarily interested in getting initiated, but he was mentioning it, and I was like, yeah, well, I don't want to take it cheaply. I was told just to accept, you know, when I feel inspired, you know, Gurudev will come to me, you know, being kind of just throwing it on the back burner like it was, yeah, come. But Kishore said, you know, he said he said he did the same thing. He called out to Srila Prabhupada, he talked to him at the song Prabhupada, and said, he told me to basically say this prayer in the morning, just, you know, as he asked, he said, who do you feel connection with? And I said, well, I grew up in ISKCON, and basically Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj has always been so near and dear, and such an amazing, stalwart personality. And he said, you just go deep in your sadhana and cry out to that personality and say, please send someone of your caliber. And so I started to request that, even though I wasn't worthy of that. But anyways, he told me to do this, and so I, despite not having probably the faith that I should, I tried it mechanically, and one thing led to the next, and I found myself in India, you know, getting, you know, his Hari Katha and his blessings and being in his presence. It was so amazing. And the point of this story is that I feel like in today's time things are getting so crazy. It's like, and there's always a Mahabharata. It may be in my best interest, and all of our best interest, to also do this same prayer. Now hopefully, through our sincere prayers, just like Gurudev heard hearts crying, through our efforts in sadhana, another Mahabharata will also come, that you guys all uplift us. So, Hare Krishna. Vanshakapa Drubhyasya Kripasimve Ucha Patitanam Bhave.
Vishal Prabhu, a few words. You can come over here, and everyone can see him.
So,
Can you throw another chair?
No.
Sure.
Jnanandjana Shalaka Chakshuranmilitam Jnana Tasmai Shri Gurave Vanchakapatavirvasta Kaprasindhavyavevacha Patitanam Bhavam Vaishnave Namo. So like many of you maybe, I was reading yesterday from Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj, his Harikatha on Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And just as Prabhu Gadardha was saying, in this book, the Holy Masters, it shows not only the glories of these masters that he served, but you get a sense of his own devotion by that appreciation. So these were masters that he served directly in his life. But I could see from this beautiful, I recommend anyone who didn't read it, it was there, you should have checked on the email. His description of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, it was just amazing how he covered from the beginning and very deeply with a lot of comments, philosophical comments on the life of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. And a personality like this, we see in succession, each acharya has some function that they perform. And I've understood from the Vaishnavas that Srila Gurudev directly said that he knows my mood. We are in like moods. So Gurudev said that Srila Bharati Maharaj said, we are in similar moods. You can hear from him after. And this is a personality that, as was stated by Gadadhar Prabhu, had such appreciation for the Vaishnavas and had been able to serve so many disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, who of course served his own spiritual master and his godbrother, who Bhakti Bhagavatirtha Maharaj, and lived together. And so we can glean from him that there's an importance to not forget that this becomes our life, that practically every day we can remember, because throughout the course of the year there are so many days where we honor either the appearance or disappearance of these great personalities, both personalities that we knew personally, and as was with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just an appreciation of his glories, that this sets us all up to live a life where these personalities are honored. And thus, not only are we fulfilled by hearing about them, but as he himself said, we get their blessings by glorifying them. And so this is such an important legacy that he left. He left it in book form, our holy masters, but he also left it by his own example, that practically every day he would be honoring some great personality. And this is a legacy that we will continue by his example within these sanghas, and thus thrive and expand. Because it is true that each acharya, he leaves something very important for us to grow, to expand. And so this, I'm sure everyone agrees, we've heard it from Maharaj a lot, that, on these days of glorifying personalities, we become enriched by hearing about their lives and even our personal experiences with them. But we also become blessed by them personally in remembering them. And this is how we make spiritual advancement, is by the blessings of superior personalities. I know that my first meeting with him was Madhukar taking me early on, must have been 2012, because I know that Shamrani was just meeting him for the first time. in Puri. And it was just a small gathering, but he came and sat. And I felt that he was so equal to everyone. His vision was, there were Indians, there were Westerners, there were those that were beginners, and those that were seniors, but his whole mood, you could feel it there. He was just had love and availability, just his own potency of being concerned, having affection and concern for devotees, all of them so junior to him, that you could feel that. And he was speaking on Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's poem, Vaishnava Ke, who is Vaishnava. And Madhava Priya very expertly was doing, even in that early time, was giving such beautiful explanations of his Katha. And I remember Madhakar, he said, oh, this is a very special person. That's how he encouraged me. And every day we would go, and hear from him every morning. And I remember again in Puri, there was 1 year, maybe it was Purushottam Mas, but his appearance day fell in a time when there were so many devotees there. Maybe, is it around Ratha Yatra? Yeah. Oh, okay, so it was. Okay, so it was Ratha Yatra, so that beautiful temple, which his spiritual master acquired, the birthplace of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, yet that was filled, when I mean filled, it was filled out to the street. So you know how there's a platform, a mandap there, well that was filled, and all the places where you could even see from him, but even where you could not see, there are people out the door, some skinny, got in up there, and I could witness him. Here he's being honored, and each of the sannyasis were offering articles. But you could discern that he was able to sit there and accept this worship, but with such humility that there was no sense that he was accepting the worship, in his own, because I don't know, you can just tell by the eyes and the glances and just the effulgence, just the aura that you're, when you're close sitting, that he had total humility while this was going on. The emotions that were there among everybody that were close to him. I remember Bhagavat Maharaj. I said, you were there too that time. And it was such an ecstatic feeling. Everyone felt we are in the presence of a person equal to our previous acharyas. It was like that. There was and everyone felt that same, how fortunate we are to be in the presence of such a personality. So, on the stage, just remembering him and continuing to remember him beyond this day by reading his Vani that comes, emails, and in the days that we celebrate disappearance and appearance days, we'll be hearing from him so much in his classes, and that is his legacy which will continue and will continually bless us.
Nitya Prabhu?
Srimad Bhakti Vedanta beloved Gurudev, Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, and to our whole Guru Varga, and on this day especially, Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj, who we have heard, and it is described the acharyas have their specialities, and we've heard and seen that Srila Maharaj's speciality is in honoring the Vaishnavas and serving the Vaishnavas and more. It is described in this book that he served 14 Mahabhagavat pure devotee disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, 14 of them, and they all had so much affection for him, and he also had so much affection for them. So that's very special. One time, one of his godbrothers had fallen ill, and his Guru Maharaj requested him, I want you to take care of this devotee. And that devotee had some differences to his Gurudev, and he was telling his Guru Maharaj, I don't want to serve this person, and why should I serve him if I don't feel that, and I know he has done politics against you. And his Gurudev said that he has one good quality, that he has so much faith in his Gurudev. He has full faith in our Gurudev, and so you should serve him. And so he followed that order of his Gurudev, and he went there and served him, and he served him so lovingly that that godbrother completely changed his heart and began to follow and very nicely join his Gurudev. And so by that love and by that service, he's able to help people understand the value of following pure devotees, sadhak. He was given the service to help the pilgrims, and he would help set up the tents and help take care of them. And they would go out on parikrama in the daytime, and they would come back at nighttime, and he would protect from anything that may happen, like thieves or anything. So he'd stay up all night, and he would walk around, and he would chant Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, and if anybody came to steal anything, they would hear him and run away. And so I think he commented that the pilgrims come and they do parikrama of all the holy places in the daytime, and at nighttime I get to do parikrama of them. So it was nice to hear that story. And one last thing in closing. Before 2016, we had heard so many of his glories, and I also wanted to have the opportunity to meet this personality. And so we went in 2016, and me and my daughter Prabhu, and we were able to meet Maharaj and see him and hear his Katha and be in his presence. And one day he went to Govardhan, because they were doing the Kartik Parikrama there, and we got to the Govardhan Mat right before he arrived, and there was class going on. I showed Gadadhar around, and then we went up into the temple, and we didn't realize that there was like a lot of devotees there. And so many devotees, and all of our sannyasis were up on the stage, Tirtha Maharaj, Bal Maharaj, Madhav Maharaj, and so many. And when Srila Bharati Maharaj walked in, I also had a very similar feeling, and I could see, because he came in, and everyone stopped what they're doing, fell at his feet, put him up there, and like tears were coming, and I could see very strongly that, you know, here's all of the children who have lost their father in physical. Here's all the children, and here's the uncle who has just come in, and basically take relief in his presence. So, and so much reminiscing of their father by seeing the uncle walk in the room. And so that was really, really amazing to see that and witness that.
Where was that again?
This was in Govardhan.
Oh.
So it was the second half of Kartik, and all the devotees have moved to Govardhan. So on this day, I'm praying at the lotus feet of Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj that I can have one drop of this service mood to the Vaishnavas and this honoring the Vaishnavas to be very important in my life and in my heart. And by His mercy, this will become possible.
Read his pranam mantra. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Kripai Kavita Jamarja Darakshati Vaishnavanam Kripavanam Madhava Prishtakami Shri Bhaktiram Bharatim Ashrayam. I accept shelter of the lotus feet of the most revered Srimad Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj, who treasures the mercy of Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his exclusive wealth, who is the personification of following Vaishnava etiquette and in its purest form, who considers the boundless mercy of Srimad Bhaktivedanta Maharaj as his life and soul, and always aspires to eternally remain his dearmost servitor. One who knows and fulfills the most cherished desires, Manavishta, of his beloved master, and who bestows Shri Bhakti, the topmost service of Srimati Radhika, as her maidservant to one and all without discrimination. So this morning, while I was singing the Mangala Charan, and I pulled this up and sang it for Srila Bharati Maharaj, and in that time I was thinking of this term that we hear everywhere we look, this Prishta, Madhav Prishta, Gaura Prishtaya, Radhika Priyatmane, Keshava Prishtaya, like they're dear, he's dear to his guru. What is this idea of being dear to? I was thinking, this is like Adhikar. Being dear to who? To Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. If you're dear to that person, then your Adhikar is so high. So like in all of our pranam mantras, someone is mentioned there of who they are dear to. And like in Gurudev's pranam mantra, Radhikaya Priyatmana, he's dear to. Radhika, he is the Atma of her Priya, her dearness, her mercy. And I was thinking, how that is the Adhikar. So how do we get this Adhikar to become dear to Vaishnava? And how? Then it's not such a small thing. It's not just by being close to them and washing their clothes and doing like this. It's by actually taking that one moment of association. When you're coming into Sadhu Sangha, they say, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, even just 1/11th of a second. But in the fine print, it's pure association. When you're coming with Sharanagati, when you're coming with that mood of what they have this Krishna Eka Sharana, right? This is what makes them, like all their good qualities are something real because of the Krishna Eka Sharana. It's told like the Pandavas and the Kauravas, right? They give charity to the Brahmins both, but they only have like one difference. Is this Krishna Eka Sharana? They're surrendered to Krishna. And so, how do we become the Priya, the Prishta of our Guru Maharaj, of our whole Guru Varga, that he's Madhav Prishta, he's close to his Guru. Who's close to his Guru is like the Anugatya, they're not alone. When we see the Vaishnava coming, they're not alone. They have, everyone is there. The whole Guru Parampara, Krishna's there. Everyone is there. So how we follow in their Vani, in their instructions, that Sharanam, that concept of Atma Nivedan, Tuapadikori, how to offer oneself, and in following our Anugatya, and in every prayer we hear that our acharyas write for us, they're making this prayer. Koro Atmasan, make me like you. Help me surrender, and like following and copying them, how they serve their Guru Maharaj. And then something very spectacular. When like Madhav Krishna, if he's close to his Guru, our Guru Maharaj is close to Radhika, we hear Krishna Prashna, then if you're dear to them, then this phenomenon of the indebtedness coming. Like in the story of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa when he offends Durvasa Rishi, and Durvasa comes to Lord Vishnu and he's like, how can you not have the power? And he says, I am not independent. I'm not independent from my devotee. And why? Because they're Sharanagati, because they've given up everything. And then, like Maharaj mentioned, and in these, when Lord Vishnu is speaking to Durvasi, saying they give up family, they give up wealth, they give up all these things, and then we're looking to Srila Bharati Maharaj and our Srila Gurudev. Not only did they give up their material family like this, but also this like God family. They build these temples. He built the temple with his own hands. Gurudev, he carried the bricks on his head and he built Devananda Gaudimat. And their family is there, and they're there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. When we were building the temple in Govardhan, the entire Gaudimat, I remember Gurudev said, don't become attached to this mandir. Don't become attached to Thakurji. And at that time, it was just like, it was mind-blowing, you know, but then to think of the history, he did that. Srila Bharati Maharaj, they did that. They gave up that external idea of, I have to stay with my family or do like this because of Krishna Kashara, because they're surrendered and they're doing what is the plan of Krishna. And with their Ahoy, but why did he do it? To give mercy to us. And becoming dear, how do I become dear to my Guru Maharaj? In that same verse, Vishnu says, what is it? Bhaktir Bhakta Janagya. That not only is it that my devotees who have given this Sharanagati, not only are they so dear to me and that I'm indebted to them, but those who are dear to them, also I'm indebted to them. So this is like for me, like my only, like, hope, almost, is to become dear to that person who is dear to that person who is dear to that person who is dear to. The only way I got some association with Srila Bharati Maharaj was because I was next to Shamrani Devi. You know, I was following her here and there, and where was she? At the foot of Vaishnava, you know, and then I got to be there. Only from her mercy. And then sometimes I would say, I'm not serving Shamrani Devi, I'm actually serving Vasanti. So I'm like, I'm down the line, you know. So I just pray so deeply, externally deeply, that I can serve those who are dear to Srimati Radharani. And here they are. And also I was thinking, because when Sri Guru comes and he's sitting before you, their whole Anugatya is standing there behind him. Darshane Pavitra Koro Ekumargun, that even when their darshan is there, why is it that Lava Matra, that their association is so powerful? Because they have, all of them are there. Not only is it the whole Guru Varga, but Dham is there, you know, Krishna is there. So if you can see with the Premanjan that vision, then that is how sometimes you hear like, oh, he was glowing, he was shining like this, because who's there with him? Krishna, Radharani, Gurudev, they're all there. And so I just offer my pranams to Srila Bharti Maharaj and my gratitude that I could somehow be in that association for some amount of time and see his beautiful, resplendent qualities. One time I was in a darshan there was many people there. Somehow I was pretty close. Anyway, one devotee asked a question. And I was thinking, like, oh my God, what kind of question is that? But then Srila Bharti Maharaj, he gave this answer and description of Krishna and his peacock feather and the turban he wears. And I thought, just as I was listening, like my jaw was like becoming more slack. Like what they can do with some simple question, and it was just so beautiful, and how he kept so steady and fixed to Shastra and Guru Varga and etiquette. That is his glory. That he's not alone. He's not doing this just, it's me, worship me, look at me. That is his glory. He's following in Anugatya. So that is actually the glory of Shishya. How to become pure Shishya is to follow in Anugatya. So Gurudev and all the Vaishnavas always say you must glorify, you must glorify. So in that idea, I try to glorify Srila Bharti Maharaj so I can somehow get some extra mercy upon my head.
Very nice points. Actually, it reminded me, one of the things that you told, reminded me of the first time that I met Srila Prabhupada. In 1971, he came to Detroit, and he was sitting on his Vyasasan surrounded by all the devotees. And just opposite on the wall was a painting that we've seen before. It's come from the Brajvasi prints of Radha and Krishna and the 8 gopis. We've all seen that classic. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada was telling his art department, Shamarani and everything, all that she had engaged, to make these big paintings for his temples all around the world. So in Detroit, they had one almost as wide as that wall over there, and like the same height. So big painting directly across from Prabhupada, and he was looking at that painting, and he made one point, he made more than one point, but one point that I remembered that struck me was he said, you see, here is the spiritual world. This is the depiction of the spiritual world. And then he said the spiritual world is completely the opposite of the material world. Because in the material world, everyone is trying to become more and more the master. And so in the material world, the more that someone becomes the master, his position becomes greater and greater, right? But he said in the spiritual world, it's completely the opposite. Everyone is trying to become more and more the servant. The servant of the servant of the servant. Maybe we used to say 1,000 times removed, right? And he said, so in the spiritual world, the lower that one's position is, the higher that they are. I remembered that. So we have some minutes. Is anyone else wanted to say anything?
2 minutes. Of course.
Because I'm going to read also. When you're finished. No. Just 2 minutes. Whatever. Because there's a Katha of describing Srila Bharti Maharaj's entrance into the Madhyan Leela of Shri Radha Krishna at that time when he departed. Yeah.
This is all from our limited obeisances, the Lotus feet of my spiritual master, Gurudev Krishna, Om Vishnu Katha Srimad Maharaj. And I pray and beg for his costless mercy. For the Padmanabha Swami for the Rupa, I pray and beg for the costless mercy on this special day to Gurudev Krishna, Om Vishnu Katha Srimad Swami Maharaj. For his costless mercy to Padmanabha Maharaj, Vaishnavis, to accept my pronouns. It's very nice to hear the glories of the Vaishnavas on this very auspicious day, special day. All I can do is pray for their mercy, because it's only by their blessings that we're able to taste, to do something, and to move forward in the path of spiritual life. Unfortunately, I don't have and that's it. So then I was very attached to my vow, and eventually I was walking back to the mosque, and I see Govinda Priya in a rickshaw on the way to Mayapur to see him with Vasanti and Shmarani Didi. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going. And she's like, come, we're gonna meet up. Rati Maharaj, she's a Vaishnava at Mahabhavat. And I'm like, I gotta finish my vow, Didi. Like, not, I gotta finish my paragraph. And she's like, no, you must come. This is more important. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I have my vow. Eventually she convinced me, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go. And then I went, and I'm really grateful for that, because I realized that I heard from the Vaishnavas that our brats and vows are nothing compared to the association of the Vaishnavas. So that was very nice. I was able to ask him one question at that time, and he said, I asked him, like, why I'm not getting any type of advancement in spiritual life, even though I'm trying to do, chanting and everything. And then he gave the example very nice of when the drop falls on the rock. He asked me, like, when do you think progress starts happening? And I was like, I don't know, like in a few years. And he said, no, the moment the first drop touches the rock, I can develop a mood of service and always serve Vaishnavas and always stay in line and just keep doing what we're doing, and do not let the test and the material energy come close to us and deviate us from the path of bhakti. So this day I pray for His costless mercy that I can stay in line and follow, like Govinda Priya said in Anugatya, always stay surrender, always stay under the...
Associating with him very regularly all the time through his Vani. And it is truly amazing. And I like that Vishaka mentioned the book, My Beloved Masters, because that is really, I feel that's one of his greatest contributions, because if he hadn't done that, guess what? We wouldn't know anything. Because that generation of Vaishnavas who had direct association with the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they had their experiences, and those experiences go with them when they leave their body. But Srila Bharati Maharaj did this within the last few years, mostly after Gurudev departed from his lectures. And that book was compiled, and it's really an amazing, valuable book. And I just want to say, like I've said this before, but there was one particular Vaishnava who I had heard about, and I'd also seen his samadhi and so forth. And in that book is a total description of him, his life, his service to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. And through reading that, I developed this deep, deep appreciation of him. Even though, obviously, I never met him, but he was very close to our Srila Prabhupada also, and so close to all the Vaishnavas. That Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur even cried tears when he came, saying, oh, Mahaprabhu has sent one of his own, And he's one of the Vaishnavas who went to the West and preached in England and all of that. So, very important contribution, that book, My Beloved Masters. Not just for us, but for all future generations and for all the ISKCON devotees, that they can hear how glorious were the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this little excerpt is titled Entrance into the Madhyan Leela of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. On September 3rd, Shravan Mahadvadashi, Srila Maharaj accepted Mona, silence, while fasting, and continued his Mona through Monday, September 4th, the Avirbhav Titi of Sachidananda Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. On Tuesday, September 5th, choosing the Tirobhav Titi of Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, Srila Maharaj manifested his disappearance pastime from this world by entering into the very special pastime that takes place in the afternoon, namely Sri Radha Kunda Madhyana. Half an hour before Srila Maharaj entered Nityalila, his servants painted an extremely beautiful tilak marking on his forehead. His different limbs were smeared with the dust from various pastime places of Sri Vrindavan Dham, which was brought by one devotee, and then one portion of Jagannath Mahaprasad brought by another devotee was placed in Srila Maharaj's lotus mouth, and his favorite picture of his Guru Maharaj, which was present in his room, was placed on his heart. At that time, both the doors and the windows of Srila Maharaj's room were flung open for the devotees to take his darshan. The approximately 150 devotees present at the mutt at that time immediately understood the situation, and everyone together in a mood of extreme separation, weeping, began loud kirtan of the Mahamantra with tear-filled eyes. For approximately 15 minutes, Srila Maharaj heard the kirtan of the Mahamantra sung by all the assembled devotees in an enraptured state, and at 12:26 p.m. he entered the eternal pastimes. It is not possible to describe the state of the assembled devotees. In a moment, the news about Srila Maharaj's departure spread all over the world, and all felt acute separation from him. Srila Maharaj entered the eternal pastimes by choosing the disappearance titi of that very Srila Haridas Thakur whose body Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lifted in his arms and danced with, and who was ornamented by different titles, such as Siddhadeha, the preacher of the holy name. While glorifying Srila Haridas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as if he possessed 5 mouths. On Srila Haridas Thakur's Viraha festival, Mahaprabhu promised to give benedictions to all the devotees. Quote, those who obtained the darshan of the Vijayotsava of Haridas, those who participated by performing kirtan and dancing or in giving him samadhi, those who honored Mahaprasad during the Viraha Mahotsav will all soon gain the favor of Sri Krishna. That was spoken by Mahaprabhu. In separation from his dear devotee, lamenting, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, being merciful upon me, Sri Krishna gave me the association of Srila Haridas Thakur, and now, by his own independent desire, he has broken that association. When Srila Haridas Thakur desired to leave this world, it was not in my power to detain him. Simply by his will, Srila Haridas Thakur gave up his life, his pran, exactly like Bhishma Pitamaha. Srila Haridas Thakur was the crown jewel on the head of this world, Without him, this world is bereft of this valuable jewel. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told everyone to say, Jai Jai Sri Haridas, all glories to Srila Haridas Thakur. And he told everyone to chant the holy name of Hari. The fact that Srila Maharaj chose this titi to enter the eternal pastimes is in itself supernatural, and it insinuates a message filled with deep mystery. Just as Srila Maharaj would himself express, quote, it is not a coincidence that my Guru Pada Padma Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Ashtatara Shata Sri Srimad Bhakti Dayata Madhav Goswami Maharaj manifested the pastime of choosing to appear in this world on Uttam Ekadasi by selecting the appearance titi of Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj and consequently choosing to disappear from this world by selecting the Tirobhav titi of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj demonstrates his eternal relationship with these personalities. However, Bujibe Rasika Jan na Bujibe Mura. Only those devotees who are fully accomplished with the realization of rasa can fathom this. What will those who are bereft of the realization of rasa be able to understand? So this is a nice katha that came today on his disappearance day. And certainly, as he told here, his disappearance on Namacharya Haridas Thakur, on his own disappearance day is very, very significant. And also coming just after Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day. So we honor Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj as we honor all of our previous acharyas on his disappearance day with Guru Puja. And so now we'll finish this Harikatha and perform his Guru Puja. Gaur Premanam. Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Tadiya Tirobhav Mahamahotsav Titi Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Tirobhav Mahamahotsav Titi Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanam. Vansha Kalpataru Yascha Kripa Sindhu Vyayascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo.
Actually, I pick them all the time. I've seen that on the
Marco, you want to pass that out first? Ranga, you want to pass that out?
Yashri Priya Parisham Vishpad Shmat Akiyam Bhati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Guru Sharanam Kevala Vakati Shadma Shri Guru Sharanam Shri
Radha Govind Ji ki Jai. Jai Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ji ki Jai. Shubha Bodh Arti ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtogar Sata Shri Shiva A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtogar Sata Shri Shiva Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtogar Sata Shri Shiva Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtogar Sata Shri Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jadiya Tirubhav Maha Mahotsav Titi Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtogar Sata Shri Srila Bhakti Dayata Madhava Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtogar Sata Shri Srimad Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtogar Sata Shri Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Jagat Gurudev Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Saparikar Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Mahabhagavat Srila Gorakishore Das Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Vaishnava Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Gauri Vedanta Charya Baladev Vijabhushan Prabhu ki Jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki Jai. Shri Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Trai ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sada Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Srila Swarup Damodar Roy Ramanandari Gauda Parshada Vrinda ki Jai. Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Tadiya Tirubhav Maha Mahotsav Titi Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Brahma Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Antar Dweep Mayapur Simanta Dweep Godrum Dweep Madhya Dweep Kola Dweep Rita Dweep Jana Dweep Moda Druma Dweep Ruda Dweep Atmaka Shri Shri Namadweep Dhamma ki Jai. Jai Shri Purushottam Kshetra Shri Jagannath Puri Dhamma ki Jai. Jai Shri Vrindavan Dhamma ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Govardhan Dvarashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dhama ki Jai. Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Gopinath Radha Madan Mohan Jiva ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Raman Radha Damodar Jiva ki Jai. Jai Shrimati Lalita Vishaka Adi Ashtasaki Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Adi Manjari Vrinda ki Jai. Shrimati Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Shrimati Purnamasi Yogamaya Devi ki Jai. Shri Gopishwar Mahadev ki Jai. Sarva Bhishta Pradata Giriraj Govardhan ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiv ki Jai. Jai Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Shri Nrsinga Dev ki Jai. Bhakta Pravara Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai. Charadam Chara Sampradaya Chara Acharya ki Jai. Akaramat Raj Shri Chaitanya Mat ki Jai. Or Ananya Shakamat Samuha ki Jai. Shri Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Tribhuvana Pavana Harinama Samkirtana ki Jai. Tribhuvana Mangala Harinama Prabhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki Jai. Sachidandan Gaur Hari ki Jai. Shri Nityananda Mahajan ki jai, Shri Pancha Tattva ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai, Vrindaya Tulsi Maharani.